So I just wanted to talk with everybody about the topic of supply chain risk management. I'm out here at the beginning of the week with a healthcare client on site with them doing some of their HIPAA healthcare cybersecurity review. And they are shocked at the level of supply chain awareness that is expected by the auditors and even like Health and Human Services and the government or compliance agencies on this particular topic. So I'll do a longer conversation and maybe even a demonstration with some documentation later. But right now, the circumstances in the world kind of dictated this conversation. So what we were talking about is they have a software that is a direct vendor that they use. That vendor provides what we call a SaaS, a software as a service. So something, a database, a tool set that the hospital partner needs to execute their operations, that capability is provided by the software vendor. In days past, a software vendor created the software and they hosted it, managed it. It was all in-house with them, and so you were paying them at one level down. The expanse of options for cloud storage and for storage beyond hosted, which means in-house servers, has just gone up exponentially with things like Amazon Web Services, also known as AWS. Microsoft Azure, if you're not aware of it, is kind of a similar thing. It allows for cloud hosting. Google Cloud and the Google Workspace has a similar thing. Predominantly AWS and Azure is used for this type of cloud backup. Well, where I'm going with this is that every piece of the supply chain that allows a tool that you use or a service that you use to be successful requires you to have an awareness of the security posture of every piece of that supply chain. So in the case of this healthcare partner that we're talking to today and going through their position on a particular topic, we requested a SOC 2 report, a security report on the first line vendor. Well, in looking at that vendor's report, that vendor states that they don't host any data, they don't provide any security or anything like that of the data that is coming from the client that we're supporting. And that is done through another organization such as Azure and another security vendor that is also out there. There are many security vendors, Fortinet, Cynet, Cyreason, and just a host of them, SentinelOne. Well, those are part of, those guys provide security in the cloud to AWS, to Azure, and whatnot. So what was identified is that the data that our healthcare partner pushes into this software platform of their first line vendor does not stay with the vendor. It goes and is stored in, let's say, Azure or AWS. And then the manipulation of that data in the cloud database, the manipulation and how the first party vendor tool parses it, makes it available, the picture, the UI that's made available by the vendor dashboard that our hospital partner is paying for, is just one part of that supply chain. And so the issues in healthcare, especially of the last year, where data breaches have been predominantly associated to third-party issues, third-party risks, the recent activities that happened with AWS also contributes to that. It's not AWS in a particular topic that initiated my thoughts on sharing this information with y'all, but our hospital client, for example, and you, if you're in the same situation, if you're doing a security assessment, if you're doing a supply chain risk management analysis of any kind, not only do you need to know either the SOC report, the SOC 2 report, or a security risk assessment that they had done, if not a SOC report, but then when you identify that they need more vendors themselves to provide the tool set service to you that you're paying them for, it is also an expectation and responsibility of you or your internal team to also know the security posture and risk that those other vendors bring to the operational success of your company by being associated to the tool you are paying for. So an example, if you don't know, is Netflix. If anybody remembers back in the day, we always used to get the little Netflix spinny wheel every once in a while on the screen, right? Well, that was because for the longest time, Netflix hosted their own servers. And so we would get the buffer thing because we were watching a movie and too many other people in the country or the world or whatever was watching that same movie, and it would hang up a little bit, and then it would spin, and then it would start going again. That, if anybody's never experienced that, you just missed out on a gem in life. But for those of us that have, the fact that we don't now is only able to be facilitated because they leverage also additional partners such as AWS. So all their movies are stored on, example, likely AWS, and then AWS scales to allow for more usability, for more engagement with that movie. And in doing so, it keeps it from needing to buffer, from getting hung up like it used to in the old days. Similarly now, coming back to this point of conversation, a software that you use, and it could be a streaming tool, it could be even Facebook here with Meta, and the team at Meta has some of these also things going on. You can research it and find out. But anywhere that you have a first level, which is, let's say, the first vendor that you pay, if they provide you a SaaS, a software as a service of any kind, that is not the end of your supply chain risk. You also need to either ask them at the time that you sign with them, ask them preferably before you sign with them for a security assessment or a SOC 2 report, so that you can ask questions for understanding in your own software and supply chain risk mitigation activities. What other vendors do they rely on to provide you with the service that you're paying them for? Because this becomes the global supply chain risk management posture that is expected. If you're in the healthcare space, it's expected by Health and Human Services. The HIPAA privacy rule, the HIPAA security rule, all of these cybersecurity and just in general governance, risk, and compliance posturing expectations, those fall back on the organization, the board of directors, the key managers, the decision makers, to have policies, processes, and procedures in place, and or have somebody in their organization with experience in this field to be able to get them to remember that they need to be asking these questions. And so just keep in mind, I've thought about it, and I think I'll do another video later where I'll actually show a document. Maybe I'll do it on YouTube or whatnot. I'll put the link out. But the control measures that is supposed to be in place by each of these other vendors or these other pieces of the supply chain, they all kind of match. So you're not looking for disparate pieces across the thing. So, CC 6.4 of your first line vendor in their security report should match with the same thing of the, say, AWS or Azure. The issue is you are expected, in the healthcare space, for the main focus of this conversation, you are expected to have the security knowledge about every vendor that you have in your environment. So if you use 4 different EHRs, if you use Philips for PAC systems, if you use T systems, whatever it is, whatever software, whatever hardware provider of medical equipment that has software associated to it, you're expected to not only know what their security posture is, their status, but also from a supply chain risk management perspective, who do they rely on to deliver the services you're paying them for to you, And you're expected not to have them tell you. You, at the end of the day, are expected to go out and get that information. Maybe you can ask the first party vendor that you're paying if they would get it. This is such a new thing that vendors are not, they don't have this available yet. I believe, and I would recommend, and I think that it should be done, that the compliance officer, or the compliance department of even a SaaS tool, a security software as a service tool, that is in something like healthcare, legal, education, municipality support, anything that deals with sensors, that deals with where do they get their equipment from, who connects with it, what's the network connectivity, architecture, network diagram, layout, all of those things. I believe that they are going to need to also provide some degree of this supply chain risk management support more in the future than they do now. Right now, it's kind of on the end user. You buy this software, you are accepting all the risk associated to it. And that's what happens if you're in the healthcare space and an OCR auditor from Health and Human Services was to walk in unannounced, and they start asking you all these questions. What is your security risk management plan? Where's your your cybersecurity plan, your disaster recovery plan, your risk mitigation table? Where's the risk mitigation table where you identified what category of risk your vendors are? And then when you identify those vendors, how do you vet them? How are you vetting the strength of their performance and their posture of the service they're providing? Have you done an analysis of the supply chain requirements that exist to allow them to provide you the service that you're doing? And do you understand what that cost is, whether from a business impact analysis perspective or from an operational outage perspective? The recent example we had, it's one thing to think that AWS would have went down once in a couple years. AWS, unfortunately, it had an outage twice. It led to everything from even concerns, everything that runs on AWS. Then you've got other things that trickle in, and maybe people are worried about the function of communications apps. I don't know, like people might ask questions about WhatsApp, and things come out in the news about this particular threat, vulnerability, and stuff like that. All that said, again, I started out speaking about healthcare, being that I'm on lunch break from helping this healthcare client today. But this goes for any business that you're in. Legal, healthcare, education, municipalities, especially finance. Those are the top 5 engaged industries, verticals that threat actors spend a lot of time doing all their bad actor things in. But again, the point of this for now, until I get time to make another video on this topic, is you as the business owner, the manager, the board of directors, someone assigned to be the security POC, whether you've got security training, supply chain logistical awareness training or not, the compliance level offices in the government or whatever standard you fall under is holding your organization accountable for understanding the risk across the entire supply chain that feeds the software tools and the hardware tools that you use. So with that in mind, again, my lunch break for these guys are about over. I just wanted to stop in here and say, hopefully you guys are having a good lunch break as well. And that was just on my mind so heavy because it's the next level of awareness that you're going to need either a consultant potentially, or you're going to need to get somebody in your organization trained, or you as the owner, main manager are going to have to spend more time understanding just how deep the threats from our security chain go. All right. Thanks, guys.